Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 802, Time Feels So Vast That Were It Not. We're back to another eternity poem. As we've commented in earlier poems and studies already, 51 poems Emily will reference eternity. The idea for Emily is that can we at all as humans understand the notion of the infinite? Because the only thing we have to work on is time, and time for us is so complicated. There are some who believe that Emily is the greatest poet of time and eternity. We obviously could put Milton and Dante in there as well in that category, but it does seem that Emily has a serious grasp of the idea. Consider this woman who spent so much of her life sitting in that room that so many of us have loved to visit, that space, that bedroom with that little tiny table desk that she's sitting at there. And in that room, she is somehow able to capture so much of her different ways of thinking about time. It's quite compelling. Now, our assumptions, I think you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily is our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've worked through our set of introductory comments about it, Emily, as well as the preceding 802 poems we just finished with 801. I Play at Riches. Now, the passing of time for Emily is something she tries to capture in a set of lines like this, although very brief. Notice that just to remind, Emily's favorite book is in the Bible, the book of Revelation. She'll say it this way: time feels so vast that were it not for an eternity, I fear me this circumference engross my finity. To his exclusion who prepare by processes of size for this stupendous vision of his diameters. Now, everything is relative, right, for Emily in terms of how one thinks and talks about both living, dying, time, and the infinitive kind of understanding, the eternal understandings of time. She'll begin with the idea of time feels. In two other poems, she'll begin with this idea of time. When we get to 1121, she'll say it this way: time does go on. I tell it gay to those who suffer now, they shall survive. There is a sun, they don't believe it now. We'll also come back to this poem and the use of time in the first line when we get to 1458, and we'll play it this way: time's wily chargers will not wait at any gate but woes, but there so gloat to hesitate they shall not stir for blows. Notice she says time feels so vast. It's Emily, the great poet of the mind, who also is the great poet of emotions. She says, when I start thinking about time, the very concept can become so mind-blowing for me, so vast, so large. She says, that were it not for an eternity, the idea of somehow being able to step out of time. Here, notice eternity capitalized. Again, as we've said, 51 points she references it. She might be here, of course, just referencing deity as well, because we'll get to this idea of deity in a moment. She says, if it were not for eternity, she says, I fear me this circumference engross my finity. By the way, you'll remember this, I fear me from 777, that construction. She says, it's altogether possible that I don't know how I could think about time without trying to figure out how I think about infinity. But she says, I can't really wrap my brain around it. That's really what we would say today, right? I can't wrap my brain around this project. She says, to his exclusion, right? The idea of this exclusion of without thinking about infinity and finity. She says, who prepare by processes of size. We can't help but think of Swift and his Gulliver's Travels, right? Everything is proportionate, she says, for the stupendous vision of his diameter. Now, stupendous is a word we saw in 304. We're going to see it again when we come to 1309. We'll see it again when we get to 1674. 1309, though, she'll say it this way: the infinite, a sudden guest, has been assumed to be. But how can that stupendous come which never went away? when we get to that, her profound insight, the philosophic insight of the power of the present moment. Notice we go from circumferences to diameters at the end of the poem. Well, Priest, the scholar, has pointed out that this poem suggests Emily's time of life on earth is so vast and rich within its circumference that she says, I fear I would not consider anything else were it not for thoughts of eternity, even though such behavior would be to exclude the very God who by the stages of our growth is preparing us for the vision of his diameters, which will one day slash across our finite world. This tension that Emily will have between, on the one hand, loving to be in this world that she lives in, and of course, on the other hand, being concerned about post-mortem. What is it that lies beyond this life? At 3a, well, obviously Dante's beatific vision comes to mind immediately in his Divine Commedia. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net. At 2b, I love the language of being blown away. It's almost exaggeration. It's almost hyperbole of a kind. At 3a, like we mentioned, Dante's stupendous vision, his multifoliate rose right at the end. We've given, as we said, full lectures on the Divine Commedia. Finally, at 3b, what stupendous vision, if we can borrow from this poem that phrase, has blown you away? And is it possible that maybe it's just the poetry of Emily? I hope so. Thank you.